Hi, I'm Andrew Cavalier. Welcome to this ABI Research Snapshot. I'm joined today by Arpod Iozsa, Chief Product Officer from Lasting Software. In this discussion, we'll explore how non-terrestrial networks are becoming a standard part of 5G. We'll also discuss why legacy testing approaches fall short in an NTN environment. Welcome, Arpod.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
One of the key findings of our research is that with release 17 and 18, satellite connectivity is no longer an edge case. It is becoming a standard component of the radio access network. From your perspective, what does that change mean for telecom operators?
Well, it means that satellite links are now judged by the same KPIs as terrestrial run, so latency, reliability, and service continuity. Operators can no longer treat NTN as a separate or experimental domain. Once NTN is integrated into run, any satellite impairment directly affects the end user experience, which makes realistic pre-deployment validation critical.
Terrestrial networks are also designed around static cell towers. NTNs introduce satellites moving at orbital speeds. Why does this create such a challenge for testing and validation?
Well, satellites introduce extreme Doppler dynamics, and handovers basically happen far faster than anything we've ever seen in terrestrial networks. Most legacy testing tools simply cannot reproduce these conditions with sufficient realism. As a result, issues often remain hidden during the lab testing and only emerge once the service is live, when basically mitigation becomes far more complex and costly.
The research also highlights a major operational risk when operators rely entirely on satellite partners. When something goes wrong, it's not always clear where the fault occurred. How does independent validation help address this issue?
Well, without independent testing, operators must accept the partner's explanation. If you have your own validation capability, that allows you to actually enforce SLAs and protect the customer experience. It also gives operators at the end of the day the confidence that when they're integrating multiple satellite partners into a single service offering, it's going to be something to the long term.
I see. Another challenge outlined in this paper is scale, actually. Validating a dynamic satellite environment is far more complex than testing a single static link. Why do legacy hardware-based test solutions struggle here?
Well, it's about scaling, right? Traditional RF emulation hardware is expensive and difficult to scale. Emulating multiple satellites and handovers would require significant capital investment and specialized expertise, which makes basically the whole process impractical to validate real-world NTN scenarios on a regular basis.
Fantastic. The report ultimately recommends a shift toward software-defined channel emulation. This approach changes how operators think about NTN validation. What advantages does this model offer?
Software-defined emulation allows operators to test multiple NTN scenarios in parallel without heavy hardware investment. It brings the whole NTN validation closer to existing network operations and Q&A teams, rather than limiting it to RF specialists. This makes continuous validation possible as constellations, standards, and service models continue to evolve.
Fantastic. As a satellite and terrestrial networks continue to converge, testing and validation is becoming mission critical. Static testing methods are no longer sufficient for dynamic, non-terrestrial environments. To learn more, you can download the full ABI research report, Validating the Non-Terrestrial Future, the Telco Strategy for 5G NTN, Quality Assurance, and Risk Management. Thanks again for joining me, Arpod.
Thank you, Andrew.